So we're really happy to just finish this project. This Fairy Palace is unique because we're able to take our own skills as our individuals to bring our artistic and creative design into this build, which allows the free form of not only our self-expression, but the expression and what wants to come out of the wood we're working with the live edges. And it's just really organic and beautiful way of like building art. It feels like everyone that's come and helped on this project has a piece of their own artistic expression within this, with also sharing the collective vision of the original person that wanted it built. So really beautiful way of creating art and a home and a space to live in that just feels not only at home, but you can feel the creative expressions of each individual in the art as you walk through it.
Yep, this is Serafina's tiny house. So our design process is very organic and alive. So how most clients come is putting a lot of trust in me and our ability to communicate and ability to communicate with the crew. The frame was already made, and so we had to kind of come in with our own organic process over the square frame. Our next tiny house, we're building the frame, but this one here was more kind of rounding the masculine square into a more feminine space for people to feel more comfortable and open in. And by being influenced by the womb space, a lot of that is more feminine curves and places in the tiny house that correlate with our body and our biology.
So the inspiration for a lot of this work was very earthbound, and through the nature that we live in and around every day. You know, when you look at the curves and the way that the structures come together, it's much like growing of roots and flowing of river. We really like to try to embody the essence of home and being here. And so the creation process has been extremely organic in how we work together and work with the space.
We do drop-in circles midday to basically check in with everyone, have a little meditation, do whatever practices that people are inspired by, or comedy improv. And for me, I feel like the space develops from the attitude that we hold, and so we try to keep a really high vibe in the workplace, because the more joy that we can offer into a piece of art, the more beauty I feel like will emerge from it. And so our business structure is also really honoring people's humanity and being able to show up when they are able to and inspired to work, and also work on specific projects that they're inspired to, and give their own freedom of creativity within those projects. This front door is made with 2 pieces of oak and 1 piece of walnut in the center, and then we put a river epoxy in the center, and so at night, as you'll see, the door will glow from the back. Serafina, who this house is for, designed this goddess in the front as a protection symbol, safety symbol. and kind of her essence. I feel like the door is the most important part of a building, is because it's the entrance space or the portal where you're kind of transition into a new space. And so that door, I feel like, has to embody the essence of that space to allow you to enter it into the environment that it's invoking. And over here is a cobra, which is from Egypt, handmade. And yeah, so we try to, let's enter the portal of the tiny house.
Yeah, so when you enter the space, the first thing you get is an overwhelming vibe, a feeling of comfort and curves and nature, and you can really see all the creative expression in everybody's different artistry, the way that they actually work with the wood and the things that we're using to build. We like to stay natural with all of our materials, even down to the insulation. We use something that's so natural that you could even eat it if you wanted to. I don't advise that. But, so, some of the unique features of this tiny home: one massive, epic bed that comes down on a hand crank and also has its own custom LED yin-yang tree imprinted wood and artistry underneath.
Over here is the central focus, so we have two circles on either end here, and the idea is to kind of focus one's energy. This is the altar space up here, and focus their intention into the altar space. And so I see this as kind of the portal into someone's deeper depth or spirituality. And so Seraphina will be putting whatever has a deep meaning to her up here. And then underneath here is the closet space, and these latches, and so this is her clothes area. And then up here we also inlaid different crystals that have different meaning and different energies, and we made it like ripples of water kind of coming out of the center, kind of rippling that energy of the altar out. And the ripples are also underneath here in turquoise. And we have selenite and amethyst, and a few other different kinds of stones that are inlaid into the structure there.
So another really unique aspect and feature of this tiny home is the custom countertop. And so this was engraved and inlaid with mica powder and apatite crystals, different pine cones. When you look down the side, it's very unique in its the way that it looks and comes across, something that you don't get to see every day.
There's 3 different kinds of wood that we use. This is oak, we use walnut here, and then elm for the shelves. And I like to kind of combine trees. I feel like each tree has a different energy to it, and so putting them together creates both aesthetic and energetic effect.
So our systems that we put in here to make it efficient and a lot more, have a better ability for being off-grid, are using systems that are low energy use and cost effective. So our whole plumbing system is low water usage. We use on-demand hot water heaters located under here, which are all digital. A lot of our systems are also hooked up off-grid grid, so we have a whole solar panel system in here. Our batteries actually live directly underneath this right here, so our battery storage. And then we have a water catchment that sits up above. This water catchment system allows us to hold all our water in-house, so if you're off-grid, you have a reserve tank of water to use. Install this wireless LED system here. So this is a wireless control panel, and this panel controls 4 different zones. One of our first zones is this upper ledge, which lights the whole entire ceiling at night, which is beautiful. A second zone is actually the panel right underneath the bed. So when the bed's up and you're down here hanging out, this can be any different color you want or have it cycle through. The last segment, so it allows this back area to glow and have its own unique, separate from the rest of the systems. So inside our bathroom, we have these custom little shelves that are back in the corner. Did custom light covers and this beautiful doorway in here with different shelves in here for them, all using organic wood that we've scounged, like all recycled wood that we've found.
Compost toilet. This is a pretty high-end one. There's a fan that vents it, and then kind of a pee diversion so that it can compost well and heat up to the temperature that it needs. And then there's a tray that you take and dump into another compost pile that continues to compost for about a year, and then you can use it for whatever kind of growing that you want.
So our shower is a custom-made shower as well. We used the stuff called Structolite, which is basically a mortar, to curve and bring more like shape into our bathroom area, feeling more organic and more alive in here. We also have custom shelves that we built inside of the area, allowing you to put your shampoos and soaps, still real natural organic style to it as well, and put a beautiful rock floor down on the bottom to kind of accentuate the beauty of the whites and bringing in some more like vibrance into the space.
If we go over here, we can kind of see the challenge of working with the Squarespace. The trailer, the frame, and the windows were already made, and so our process was making it more alive and organic. So our solution to the square windows was kind of curving that. To me, there's nothing wrong with squares, but squares provide a more masculine space, and for me, there's enough masculinity, I feel like, in our culture and in our buildings that we can make it a little more feminine and more alive with curves. And then over on this wood, we burnt it, it's a Japanese technique called Chushugiban, and that kind of brought out the grain a little bit and broke up the space into different levels to make the space more alive and interesting. And part of why we make the space less square and more alive is to open up people's awareness. When things are straight, for example, a brick wall, you don't wind up noticing every single brick in it. but as soon as things move and undulate, if the picture frame is off, you'll notice it. And so by creating things that are a little bit off, we can then enliven people's senses, and then they start to notice their environment more and engage with their environment more. We also use natural tree branches over here for the shelf, which to me, the most beautiful trees are the trees that struggle. And I think it's a good metaphor for life. But there's a beauty in the elements shaping a piece of wood to become more alive and organic. And so I like to find pieces of wood that are as curvy and gnarled as possible.
So one of the challenges with a tiny home is being able to utilize as much space as possible. So some of the features to being able to use space that are like fold down tables, so you can sit down and do seated, like Japanese style tea. Also, this bed was a very big challenge to actually have a place for your bed. Most people put them in the loft, so we created a hang-in bed system that you can actually drop down, and it's a pretty simple system. And you can just roll this down. Takes a little bit of time, but with all the extra space that you're saving, it is really nice.
So one of my favorite ways of collaborating with the space is making changes into more artistic ideas. And so one example is the client decided to have the counter up at this height, which we made a hot water heater that correlated with that height, but then she wanted it lower, and so then we had the design challenge of having to bring this table out, and how we worked with that was actually making extra shelves in the back. And so we made this compartment here, which you can store spices, and then there's a compartment right here which you can put keys and other things when you walk in the house. And so another good example is this table, which the batteries are there and obviously are not aesthetically pleasing, but instead we turn this into a table that can come down. And so there's a lot of little ways that I feel like if you just fully embrace whatever changes emerge in the space, then it can lead to a lot more creative ideas through adapting to that. This is a custom hand-blown window made by Brian Goldstein and was kind of fit Serafina's desires and aesthetics. So we custom made this to fit in this area. To me, it's like a portal, another portal that kind of draws you into this space. Circles are one of my favorite shapes. Circles are one of my favorite shapes, and so I feel like they encompass totality and wholeness within them.
Another thing that you don't really think about when it comes to creating a new building style that's more organic and natural is living in a world where the building materials that you're left with are for square buildings. So some of the challenges that we came up against were using these materials in a way that was more in flow with the overall design of the house. And so this is cedar shake siding, something that's used commonly on roofs and houses that are more shack and hut style. And so we just used it and overlaid it in a pattern to accentuate the entranceway and also create a more aesthetic and pleasing feel and look for the entire outside of the building?
So within our architecture, we use it as a ceremony, and so the whole time we're keeping the client in mind and actually working to embody their essence and express it through our bodies to make a space that, to me, is almost like a second skin that people can grow into, almost seeing people's fullest potential in them, and so creating that second skin that they can then open up to. The process that we use is starting with a ceremony with the client, where they write their intentions into the floorboards, into the walls, and then we put crystals into the walls that have some meaning to them. And then the whole time and the process is that client coming to us with their own unique expression, and we then translate that through us and embody it into the structure.